My brother Matt. Well, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the show, man. I've been a big fan of you as a human being since I kind of met you. I can't remember how back when that was, but ever since then, I kind of always really enjoyed talking with you. Really enjoyed our conversations, and I can't wait to hear about this. So thanks for coming on the show today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
I
no
think
problem.
it was in, it would have been in, I started in 2009. I think that's where we met at YMCA Camp Falcona.
Yes.
So I started in 2009, and I don't know if you were there that year or maybe the year after in 2010, but it's somewhere around there.
Yeah, I think it was 2010 or 2011. Yeah. And we'll get into that. But kind of take us through your transition, just so everyone gets a feel for who you are and what you do. Take us through your transition from life after high school, like transition leaving to kind of where we are now.
Yeah, so I guess after high school I did the typical, the typical route that I thought at the time was to go to university. So I went to Wilfrid Laurier University, was going to major in political science because I like to argue and I like to, have spirited debates and stuff. And I sort of thought that was sort of the program best meant for me. But I only did 2 years there, and after 2 years, I just felt it wasn't for me. I wasn't enjoying myself there. I didn't see what I was going to accomplish at the end of it. So after 2 years, I left, took a year off, worked, did some traveling, nice. And then in that time, figured out that I wanted to go and try and be a paramedic. So after that, I went to Conestoga College, did some pre-health, did some upgrading.
Nice.
And then after that, applied around Cambrian College, which was in Sudbury, which is where I was working in the summers. I was working there with you.
Yeah.
And so I accepted there, and then I went there for my primary care paramedic diploma, which is a 2-year program, and eventually led me to work here.
Nice. Now, how important do you think it was for you taking those like pre-med, pre-health courses to kind of set you up?
Oh, super important. In high school, I didn't think I was going to go down sort of a medical professional background, so I really didn't focus on biology or physiology or any sort of those types of courses. So I really didn't have the educational knowledge in place to sort of jump into a program like that, because the paramedic program, and wherever you go in the province, it's 2 years currently right now, and there's a lot of courses, a lot of knowledge that kind of gets compacted into that in 2 years, and so I needed that pre-health program to sort of help me get the base knowledge so that I could then go into the program afterwards and then kind of be successful in that. So.
Nice. Interesting. So what, real quick, when it comes to paramedics and their response time, right? I asked this because the one time as a lifeguard that I had to deal with a heart attack victim, when they showed up, they were very, not slow moving, but, well, probably for me it felt like they were slow moving, doing compressions to somebody, but I feel there's a misconception behind paramedics and when they come into a situation, their need to be very, 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 like, rushing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you don't...
Their approach.
Yeah, you don't want to rush. You want to present... You want to convey calmness to the situation. You don't want to... If you're rushing, if you seem panicked, if you seem like you don't have control of the situation, then that's going to... Then people around you, people in that situation, whether it's family, whether it's, lifeguards, like you, it's going to make them feel like the situation is not in a sense of control. You're not managing it well. You're not, able to present that sort of sense of calmness there. So really it helps us to sort of go in slowly and see what the situation is. What things do we need to prioritize first? Yeah. If it's a cardiac arrest, right, we're going in there and we want to check to make sure that see if there's a pulse. If not, then we're going to go start doing compressions. Or we're going to get, the lifeguards start doing compressions. We're going to start managing the airway. We're going to start, putting the pads on, making sure that, see if we can shock if that's a possibility there. So
Interesting.
The calm nature is important to sort of managing those types of situations.
Okay. It sounds like that is the whole need of what they need to convey, is that control the situation, because the last line of defense.
Yeah,
it feels that way, or at least in the public.
Certainly, in an out of hospital, pre-hospital situation, we are the the front line, the first responders, providing medical care to people before they get to hospital. So we have to be able to deal with any situation as it's presented to us, and be able to get them to definitive care, which is typically at the emergency department.
Yeah. Okay, it's just keeping them going until you get there, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, we can do a lot of things, depending on what the situation is. We have our cardiac monitor. We can do 12 leads. We can do defibrillation. We can start IVs. We can provide lots of different medications depending on what our skill level is. So I'm a primary care paramedic, so there's a certain level of care that I'm able to provide.
There's different. Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So within Ontario and within Canada generally, there's 3 levels of paramedic. There's a primary care paramedic, which is what I am. Yeah. That's typically a 2-year program. Then there's an advanced care level, and that's another year of school. And so within Sudbury, that's the level of care that we provide. So some paramedics are advanced care paramedics, and then the majority are primary care paramedics. Mm-hmm. My partner is an advanced care paramedic, so nice. She's able to provide more medications, do more invasive skills, has a broader base of knowledge that she brings to a call. So if certain scenarios present, then if it falls within her scope of practice, then she's able to manage those patients and provide the care that they would typically receive in the emergency department. And then finally, there's critical care paramedics, and those are the paramedics that you see typically with orange. So you see them in the helicopter or in the airplanes. So that's essentially an ICU in a helicopter or in an airplane. So
it's intense.
Yeah.
Wow, no mistakes. Jeez.
Yeah. Well, so you try to minimize them for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
Do you have any kind of teachable moments that happened to you, whether it be in the field or in school? Moments that kind of stood out?
Teachable moments? I mean, within I think that a lot of the time people that get into paramedics or get into the career of paramedics or even the medical profession as a whole, I think the expectation maybe individually is that you won't make any mistakes, right? And obviously the intent is to not make mistakes, but mistakes inevitably happen. Now, most of the time,
to err is human, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so a lot of the times they're small mistakes. They're not mistakes that have a detrimental outcome and stuff.
Thankfully,
but you're going to make mistakes, and the important thing is to be able to learn from those mistakes. And you go through a call, and and if it was a busy call, you're doing lots of things. There's lots of there's a high mental load. You're managing lots of different things, and so after a call, you might sit down with your partner, you might sit down with your colleagues and stuff, and kind of run through. I would have done this sooner. I would have done this afterwards. I would have prioritized this instead of prioritizing that. Okay. And that just comes with experience, and that just comes with being able to grow in your career. Same as in school, right?
Yeah.
I was far from a perfect student. Academics was something that I always struggled with. When I went to Cambrian, it's a 2-year program, but so I went through the first year, and then when I went into the third semester, which is second year, I had to repeat that part of it twice because the course loads and the requirements were that you get a certain average in all of your courses, and if you didn't get it in one, then you weren't able to continue. So there was a lot of pressure to, and of course they want to maintain a certain level
100%
of proficiency, right? And stuff. And so, that was sort of like, that was the big struggle that I had when I was in school, or sort of the adversity that I had to go to overcome was being able to get through the academic part, because I knew I could do it.
Right.
But I just needed to get through the parts that I was struggling with in order to get into the career and then be successful. So
now
it's nice to be on the other side of that.
Yeah. And that's I've wondered with that in terms of the debrief. I found the benefit of doing a debrief, whether it be at the end of your workday or at the end of a call or at the end of like a session or something. Like I remember filling out for a lot of different things. There's always like there's a name, a goal, whether it be like a program, an activity, a like swim lesson, anything, right? And then there's always the main like core of what you're teaching or instructing, right? And then there's the debrief. And the debrief I found is something, or reflection, and whether people do that with themselves or with their partners or with colleagues, right? I find the importance of it gets overlooked so much, because it's something that, how was that for you? Oh, it was good. But how important is that with the mental health aspect of being a paramedic? Because it sounds like a lot.
Yeah.
Right? Front lines every day.
For sure. And I think, I think you're right. Debriefs are important. They happen in all different kinds of ways. You debrief personally, just sitting with yourself after a call, mentally going over it.
For sure.
Talking with your partner, talking with colleagues and stuff. Yeah. And then certainly in regards to mental health and stuff, on those bigger calls, on those more dynamic calls, paramedicine as a whole is moving in a better direction, where mental health is being prioritized. Debriefing after those kinds of big calls is important, so they have actual teams that are colleagues within the service that are trained in mental health and trained in debriefing, to sort of take the crews or the people involved in those calls, take them aside and sort of have a chat with them about how they thought the call went, how they're feeling, how they're doing. And they'll do that, shortly after the call. They'll do that a few days after the call. They'll do that months after the call, because everyone's different, so you're not quite sure how everyone's going to feel after those types of calls. Some people deal with it just fine, and others, find it beneficial to be able to talk with somebody. Now, that may not be immediately, but that could be, days or months down the line.
Yeah. How do you stay in touch with those people that have openly voiced issues that they have, whether it be like just a PTSD for being involved in the incident, or I'm sure there's programs, right? Like, what's that kind of like? Yeah,
so within the city of Sudbury, we have the Peer Support Network.
Okay.
So the Peer Support Network has a number of people, like I said, from the paramedic department and from the fire department, and they work together. And so you're able to sort of talk with, colleagues that you're familiar with, who you feel comfortable with. And the city also has a psychologist on staff who they work with to, provide us with support after those types of calls. And then obviously you have your friends and your colleagues, who I think, probably for a lot of people, that's who they do a lot of debriefing too.
And most comfortable to talk
with. And of course family too. People talk with, their spouses, their friends, all that, those types of people, and that's at least how I've been able to do it and stuff. So
that transitions well into my next point of curiosity I have for you, Matt, is how has the importance of having a strong family foundation at home helped with the mental health aspect for you? Yeah,
well, I think so. For me, it certainly helps. So I've been married to my wife Kayla now for
shout out to her.
That's amazing. Right. Yeah. Who we met at camp. We all know each other, so we go back a long ways and stuff. And so Kayla's been a huge support in that. Right, I'm able to talk with her. She's able to listen and take in. If I've had a bad day, if if I just need to vent or something like that. So she's been great. I've got my siblings and my parents and friends and my partner and stuff at work. So I've got lots of people that I'm able to sort of talk to and stuff, and it's good. It's important to be able to do that because in order to, I want to have a long career in this, and so you have to be able to look after yourself physically, but also mentally as well. And so thankfully in sort of today's age, it's the mental health aspect within our profession is something that's more easily talked about. It's not something that's sort of just the sort of the strongman mentality and stuff. It's you're encouraged. You're encouraged to be able to talk about it. You're encouraged to seek help if you need it. And so I've got friends and colleagues that have struggled with that, but they've gone out and sought that support and stuff, and then they're able to come back into the career and be better for it. Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
It's great that that kind of experience and those kind of reactions can cause such a positive upswing. It's not like, oh, well, they're going through this, and then there's no, where do we go from here? Well, people are still looking at you as, oh, well, you're that guy who went through this, or this is how you felt it. It's like, no, he can actually come back and be trusted, which is really cool.
For sure, yeah, absolutely. I would never have any doubts of any of my colleagues coming back and, whether or not they're able to do the job and stuff. Yeah. It takes a lot. It's a lot. You are asked to sort of go into, really unusual situations or really high stress situations, and so, you got to be able to take some time to step back and talk about it or to work through it. However, whatever that process is for each individual. So.
I still remember when there was maybe 5 or 6 of us involved in this rescue, and with the heart attack. And there was I remember post situation or post rescue, and the amount of people that reached out to us just to see if we how we were doing. I know this was in Ottawa when this happened, this happened, but it still felt very, very unique and interesting that they had such a solid system. I don't know how some of them got my number. And they're like, hey, we're from blah, 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 blah. We heard about this. I'm like, you're from where?
Yeah.
Hold on a second. That was a lot of words and a lot of vowels. And it was like, we're from the QRLAPD thing, and we're here to help you. And I'm like, all right, we'll see.
Sure.
You're probably just doing your thing, but to my point, to your point, sir, I think that's huge that those systems are in place and that they're probably now more than ever easily accessible.
Yeah, for sure.
Huge.
Yeah, no, and I mean, and they're looking to, evolve those programs and make them, even more accessible. Not to say they're not accessible, but to make them more accessible to try different things. So, recently, the city has looked into getting a service dog for the department as well. So for both paramedics and firefighters, and so they're in the process of training this dog.
No way.
That's
so cool.
We just saw her at our headquarters not too long ago. So she just got here. So she's in the process of being trained and stuff like that. But the idea is you bring this dog, this service dog, in on those types of debriefs, right? Because some people might need some, might find it easier to open up if there's, if the animal's there, and the animal's trained to sense when people are stressed as well. So,
whoa,
yeah, it helps open up.
That's so cool. It's a shame it's a girl, because I was gonna say you should put Glen in as a name, but whether that's a good idea. But anyways,
the next one.
Yeah, sweet. We'll veto that one for now. But I'm sure they'll listen and be like, "Wow, all right, we're not gonna do that just to spite you." But teach your own. So with that, I remember there was the guy who kind of was like a psychologist for like the fire, like the EMS. He was the EMS psychologist chief or whatever. He had some crazy title.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man.
This is in Ottawa.
Yeah. So some shorter guy comes in, nice mustache, and he was like, hey, and he kind of explained to us just kind of how debriefs of situations like this work, and like what kind of reactions we can almost expect to have, which almost psyched me out more, because I went from that's fine to now I'm on edge, always anxious, waiting for what might happen.
Yeah.
Like I'm waiting for a bad thing to happen, and I was kind of living like, you drop a coin on the ground, I'm freaking. I'm like, So that almost had an opposite effect on me, but we got through it. And the guy I remember mentioning, he's like, it's great that nobody froze, but he's like, I remember when one of my kids was choking, he froze and wasn't able, and his wife ended up having it, and I'm like, no way.
Sure.
So I found that out, and I was like, oh, that's really interesting story.
When it's your own kids, all bets are off. I'm sure I'd be the same way. If something
that's
like
never
that
happened to you, right?
No, it hasn't happened. Hasn't happened to me
Good
yet.
stuff.
So I mean,
yeah, no kidding. You don't say.
But I mean, it's good. It's good that they came in and they talked to you guys about that. I mean, I try not to. For me personally, I don't try and overanalyze myself after a call. I think that the people around me would probably be the ones to notice if there was a change in me, like whether it be Kayla, or whether it be my colleagues at work. If they notice something that I wasn't picking up on, they would say something to me, and I would obviously kind of then look at that introspectively and then do what I need to do, reach out and
go through the necessary steps.
I agree with you. I don't want to overanalyze every situation, because some, not every call bothers me. Not every call is something that
some do, some don't.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of the times it's sort of, it progressively builds up over years, right? So it's good to do an internal check every so often and stuff. But
now, what I'm curious is, what are some kind of common misconceptions people have about paramedics? Something you've heard in public.
Common misconceptions. Yeah. Well, I mean, the biggest one is probably that we're just ambulance drivers. I know that's that's the big one that everyone always says and stuff. And I think the profession has not been around as long as a lot of other professions. I know that if you're a firefighter that's been around for 100, 200 years, police have been around for a long time. Paramedicine, as we know it today, has only been around for 40, 50 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so, okay. I mean, and to be fair, we show up on scene, we package people up, and then we're gone. We're not staying around. So it's, people don't get a real opportunity to see what it is that we do, except in those brief moments that we're, in their home or with them next to their vehicle or whatever the situation might be. So I think, the understanding of what it is that we can do, because a lot of times we'll show up on scene and people want us to quickly rush people off to the hospital, but we sort of have to, we just tell them politely that, listen, we have things that we need to do. We're going to stabilize these people. We're going to do, some of the same things that they would have done in the emergency department, but do it before they get there, so that they're able to get that care before they get to the emergency department. So,
nice. That's definitely, I could see that being a big one. I've heard like door taps about that kind of thing, but I also know a few of you guys, right?
Yeah.
So I know that's not the case. I've seen you guys do it. I've done enough research to understand kind of what it is. But how smooth is the process typically for a paramedic student to go from graduating to getting a job? From graduating to getting a job,
I mean, it's certainly competitive. I'm sure that it's a bit easier right now, given the context of how things are. Yeah. But it's certainly competitive. There's lots of graduates every year that are looking for jobs. There's only so many jobs that are being offered. So I mean, it is competitive. It took me. I graduated in June of 2017. Nice. And I didn't get hired with Sudbury until May of 2018. So for me, I went through a couple hiring processes. I went through a hiring process with Sudbury. I went through one with Manitoulin Island. Down south where I'm from, I went through a bunch down there, Toronto and Guelph and Waterloo, all those kinds of places. And there's different stages to the interview process, so sometimes you make it past the first stage and you get to the other stages as well. And sometimes just based on the sheer number of people applying, it's just the nature of the beast. And so it took me about a year to get hired on here, which I'm happy I did, because this is obviously where I live, where I went to school and stuff.
Strenuous time starting, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, we're moving, new house, new people, new friends, new job.
That's right.
Smoother.
So I was lucky I got hired on here, and I see myself working here for my career. And
nice.
So, but sometimes it depends on how willing you are to apply to different services. I know that if you're applying down south, it can be quite competitive, more so competitive than it may be the farther north that you go. But Sudbury's great. So Sudbury has a lot of. It's a nice area where you've got sort of an urban type call. Like you have a lot of that kind of stuff, and then you also have the rural aspect as well. You know, so you got a bit of everything.
Bit of everything.
Yeah,
that's cool. So Matt, switching gears a little bit, I have a handful of, a plethora, let's call it, of memories, whether it be of you or with you, right? And now we can go down memory lane in a minute, but I have one that kind of was my first and only really experience I ever had or memory I have of you where you responded to a situation. Now, you're going to be like, what? You remember this? So I know you do. So I can't remember the day, can't remember the time. I know it was my first year working on staff. And towards the end of the summer, I don't know if it was, I think it might have been banquet night or right before or something, close to the end of the summer, let's say, late summer, early fall. And a boat flew up on shore. Yeah. And there's a person unconscious in the boat. Yeah. Yeah. I was pulled away along with a lot of other people. I was one of the people being like, all right, I guess late in the summer, taking all the kids away and stuff and like making sure nobody was really around. Everybody crowded up in the dining hall together. And you and like one or two other people were there. Tell me that experience from your perspective.
I mean, I look back on it, I do remember it. And I remember, a father was, I think, fishing with his son, and I think his son had a seizure. I think that was what his father had said that he witnessed and stuff. And so, I mean, certainly a serious, something serious. And, I think I look back on it now, and I look at it from the perspective of as a working paramedic, and I probably, I was not calm and collected as I probably wish I, or as I would like to be now that I'm working and stuff. But it's, you see that kind of stuff, and it's foreign, right? You don't see it very often. You're not, at the time, you're not quite sure what you should or shouldn't be doing. And I think at the time we, obviously called 911 and they made the long trek up the camp road there, and they were able to, I think by the time the paramedics got there, which is a lot of the time, the case is, the son was, alert, walking around, was okay at the time, but needed to be assessed at hospital and stuff, and but I think for me those types of situations were sort of catalyst and reminders of sort of why I wanted to, get into paramedicine, why I wanted to do this career, was because, I found it interesting. I wanted to, I personally wanted to be able to do more and have the knowledge to do more. And so when I was at university as well, they had a lot of universities have their emergency response teams, right? And you typically respond to drunk students and standard. that standard stuff. And again, those are all experiences that sort of pushed me or inspired me to sort of want to continue on and to do this kind of work. So yeah, I remember that, and I think that was just before I went to school, maybe the year before. So, it was just one of those things that was like, yep, this is why I want to do that. Yeah.
Happened.
I think I was 20, I'm 31 right now, so I think I was 22 or 23 when I went into school there.
Oh,
yeah,
geez.
yeah. So
okay, man, that's cool. That's cool. I was really curious about that one. So kind of, I'll just give some context to everybody watching and listening. The two of you, one of them is married to him. The other one gave birth to me.
Yeah.
All right. Now, with that being said, let's move on. I found the way, let's say, I met you, like you said, I think 2010 or something. You were the food service manager, correct? That's the term.
A glorified title for a cook.
It's a lot of words.
Yeah.
But it looks pro. So I think over the course of, and I'm sure somebody will message me about this, but whatever. I felt you were the only one who had their NLS that I remember being a food service manager in the 8 years I worked on staff. One of them with you, I think, one or two. Probably one. Yeah, I think it was just one. We worked on staff together.
No, I think we worked together. I was there for 3 years as the cook, and then I was there for 1 year.
Oh
as
yeah,
the
yeah,
assistant director.
yeah. That was no, that was my.
I think we worked together for like 2 or 3 years.
I thought it was. No, because I volunteered for 1 year when you were the assistant.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, it's all the same thing. Yeah,
you weren't getting paid. That's
yeah, that's
the only difference.
I was paid in experience, right? One of those
That's
unpaid interns.
That's right.
For not much more of a paying job.
I know,
dude, it's so bad. But it's a downside because I think the importance of, like you were asking me earlier off air, like the importance of, like about the podcast, but I think the importance of having a summer camp atmosphere where there's like the whole thing felt like just kind of moderately structured.
Sure.
And that could like just playtime, like kind of moderately structured free time. Like here's our options. Pick what you kind of feel like you would enjoy the most, and then you kind of get molded together with people who are similar, like minded or like you, and you kind of get to see different types of people, whether it be like low income people or non-low income people or competitive people with sports and people who would rather do crafts, right?
Yeah.
It's a really cool like environment and stuff, but what I want to know, okay, this is more putting me on the spot than it is you. Plus, it's my show, right? So I'm doing it to myself. But for my and everybody's entertainment and my knowledge, what are some of your memories of younger Glen that kind of stand out to you? That I think that people think
younger Glen. I don't know if there's much difference between younger Glen and current Glen. Glen that I remember that I worked with. I mean, you were a ball of energy. You had so much energy that you were trying to, put towards different things. I think that it's totally understandable sort of why you were drawn to sort of that camp environment because, you need a lot of energy to work in those environments and stuff.
Energy, yeah.
So I think, like lots of energy, driven. You were certainly one of the staff. There's lots of great staff that we worked with, but certainly the one that you were always trying to, be better, do better. To if you could help out. Or you could help out other staff members or campers and stuff like that. You were always willing to do that. So that was sort of my, memories and positive memories of, sort of our time together. So
amazing. So, what was cool I found was something you mentioned. So it's funny. My favorite thing from my memories of whether it be Falcona or campfire or campfires, right? Whether it be like just participating in them, hosting them, creating themes around them, and man, I wish you would have worked there years, or even just swung by for a couple campfires, because I remember specifically the 1 year, I think it was the first year I was on staff, correct me if I'm wrong, and you put out like an open thing when because you were assistant director for second year, and
for your year,
you said if anybody wants to like take responsibility of hosting a campfire, like come up to me and like let's go. And so I remember taking you aside in between program and Lockerbie and being like, yo, I want to figure this out. I want to see how this goes.
And I'll be honest with you, the reason I did that was because I didn't want the responsibility
I knew it too.
of hosting or doing anything like that. If anybody knows me, that's not my bread and butter. So
Yeah.
better to leave it to somebody who's more willing and able to do it. So
perfect. So I almost don't like knowing that, but I kind of knew as well.
it just wasn't me.
But what was it? I had heard so many ridiculous things about different campfires and how they progressed over the years that I was so drawn to doing that. And when I finally started, that kind of opened the door for me hosting it, because the last summer that the camp was open, the last campfire that took place, my brother Neil and I hosted it together, and we didn't know
another counselor with a lot of energy.
Yeah, it's
It must be whatever's. It must be what's in the food there.
It's got to be, yeah. Well, it definitely was for the years prior to your assistant director time, but
that's right.
I think you also made the most amount of money in that position ever. But that's good negotiating skills. Yeah, that's a
shout out David Ethelston.
Yeah, shout out to him, man. He good guy. So I thought that was really cool, and a lot of the time, looking back on it, kind of the things that I was known for, in a weird way, in this in the small world that is camping, was especially at Falcona and the Sudbury stuff, it was campfires. And then when I left, all the campers really liked that every single morning, whether I would do announcements, I wouldn't do anything in the morning. I don't care about the Little Birdie song that walks everybody. I don't care to sing that. So I'm going to have the least amount of enthusiasm towards these things, and I'm going to make it obvious. I'll do the basic level, so people why is Glen doing nothing? He's the cool guy. We're going to do exactly what No, you can't have that, right, Matt? So with that being said, I remember walking in, and I remember what every kid was like, oh man, Glen does this thing every morning. I'd say good morning Falcona, and they would say good morning Glen, and it was music to my ears. So the two things, that and campfire, I started, one because I was like, you know what, I like when Matt does this, I'm going to do it every year after.
Yeah.
And I did it, and it killed every time. So every time I did it, I was like, shout out to the guy with the red hat that flipped inwards.
Oh my god! I should have looked for that. I should have.
That would have been amazing.
God.
Hang it up.
I think it said rad on. I think it's
obviously.
My rad hat.
Didn't you buy it in auction too?
That's right. I think we raised money for the Strong Kids or Strong Kids Foundation. Either way, the foundation run by the Y there. So. And I think we all just brought personal objects that we just didn't want anymore. And the little bit of the small amount of money we were being paid, we would spend it all in one night and on things that we didn't need.
Oh man, the best thing I ever bought in an auction for Strong Kids was when I was staff at Wanakita, and the YMCA of Halliburton, the COO or whatever, donated 2 tickets to Macklemore featuring Kesha, and I was like, screw it, I'm going. That was the only thing I spent money on, and I was making like $600 a week.
$600 a week
as a section director. God. And I know some of them will watch this and be like,
I was only making $500.
Yeah, amazing. Dude, I was a bit older though. Age.
Yeah.
But so that was really fun. But that was the best thing. But I remember another thing that I kind of got really into, that it was auctioneering.
Yes.
And I was like, every year you did that, and then I just kind of was like, without knowing, took the baton from you, or took the torch from you, and just kind of kept it lit. Keep going. So everything that you kind of inspired the things that I was most recognized for, Matt. How does that make you feel?
Loud rowdiness part of that.
Yeah, yelling good morning, and that's about it.
And then auctioneering. I know. I mean, I loved that camp. I loved the 4 years that I got to spend working at Falcona. I mean, obviously, I've met people like you. We've stayed friends for years. Met my wife there, and
shout out to her again. Yeah.
And so I mean, it's a great place where you're able to really just I think the whole point of camp is you're able to sort of disconnect and step back and enjoy the outdoors, and I mean, a lot of times these days you don't get that same opportunity all the time. And so, yeah, no, I have nothing but fond memories of that place.
Speaking of which, do you happen to have some favorites? Like, do you have like a few that stand out to you? And they don't have to be Kayla related either. Like, actually, if you have any that aren't Kayla related, because I was like, there's probably like the top 20.
Oh man, I mean, well, you kind of mentioned them there. I think the auctions and stuff like that we did at camp were a lot of fun. I actually just thinking about this now. The food challenges. You remember those food challenges that we used to do?
That was so stupid. I love it.
I mean,
oh, man.
we probably shouldn't be advertising this, but
hey, it's closed now, right?
That's right. It is closed.
If they were open,
I
wouldn't have brought it up.
But
yeah.
I remember that as a way of not punishing, but if you needed a bit of redirection, we would put together some sort of slop or slurry or whatever, just a mix of all different kinds of
disgusting.
The entire point of it was to try to make you sick, and I don't know what we put in that stuff, but it was just. You couldn't pay me enough money to do it, but I remember you loved to try and take on the challenge of.
There were a few that
that you were willing to do. I remember that being that was awesome. Yeah. And then there was also the brown rock swim. Remember the brown rock
you got to rip the pontoon
with the boat and
with the
stuff
captain's
like
hat and everything.
Right. I lived that up.
That was your favorite thing.
Yeah, I had the captain's hat, and you get all the kids on there and push them off and.
Yeah. So, you don't want to... Oh, you're crying.
Well, no, we didn't do that. But
maybe not you, but
Yeah, not me. I didn't do that, but I had a lot of good times there.
Thinking back, I remember there's a handful of people that I thought were just absolutely outrageous when it came to... Here's my thing, before I get into that. Nobody had a gun to your head to do these, but everybody seemed to do it. Nobody just... Like, I easily could have been like... Nope.
Yeah, fair enough.
You can't make me.
Yeah.
But then nobody did. I never found anybody doing that, which I thought was really entertaining because like they just kind of. It was so much peer pressure, right? From all these, like, think about it. Well, these first like young influential staff were like barely like just turned teenagers, let alone adults, right? Pre-adults in that weird phase, right? Like we got something on our lip, but not enough facial hair, so you shave that thing.
That's right. You know what I mean? I still can't grow. Anything, so
that's okay. At least it doesn't all come out together. And so,
that's right.
Right. At least it's not just this, like Neil. But basically, I found nobody could force you to do those, but still doing them was just absolutely ridiculous. And I remember there's probably two people that there are a couple moments in food challenge history, let's call it, Matt, and I think. One of them was, I remember specifically the watermelon eating contest at the end of, I think it was Survivor Week.
Yeah.
The 1 year. But I remember, I'm going to give a shout out to Draven, because I think he's probably the most epic food challenge competitor I've ever seen in my life. And he's the thinnest human being of all time. And I was like, this dude eats. And it was crazy. And I remember, I think it was that year, there's food waste you're doing, right? And so it was whatever your food waste, the one plate of food waste weighed at the end was X amount of points, whatever, right? I remember my brother taking 10 pieces of toast, biting a hole out of the middle of all and filling with jam like a volcano, and then not eating one bite of it.
There was also the...
and Draven just having to eat it.
Do you remember the water challenge, too? Like the water bucket challenge? It was during Survivor Week, and you guys had divided up into two teams there. We got some brand new garbage pails, and they were essentially like 80 liters, 80 liters of water, and the whole you had to see how much you could drink by the end of the week.
Oh yeah, and you only had a straw to do it.
You only had a straw to do it and stuff, and man, that was probably the most painful to watch.
Yeah.
Just
sock hole in the straw, all the water,
all week, but
just garbage.
There was There was that one, and then you know what? Some people had some fun at my expense. There was there was the color challenge that you guys had.
It was like, paint me red, paint me blue, but
that's
was
right.
you.
That was right. You guys and all the staff members chased me around for
probably an hour. Yeah, half hour.
And it wasn't like just trying to like it wasn't like light dab.
It got violent, man.
It got violent.
It got violent. Like,
there were some elbows thrown. There was some, you know, I think
you were whipping sand at us, Matt. You were whipping. We got out of the water in the front at the waterfront. You're just whipping sand.
I was an unwilling participant. I didn't volunteer for this post, but and I think eventually I was able to somehow get a head start and get onto a boat, and I eventually just went out to the middle of the lake and waited till the end of time there. But I remember there was a lot of nobody was left unscathed. I was colored. I had bruises. Other people had, you know, bruises and skin marks and all that kind of stuff. So it was
bad.
Those were good. That was a lot of fun. I look back on that.
I was the victim for my second last year, right? And the whole thing, I think it was program manager for the week, and excuse me, basically what happened is I was the same person. It was paint me Glen, or paint Glen red, paint Glen blue, instead of paint Matt red, paint Matt blue. But I wish you could have seen it, because I kind of took the same strategy approach, but I messed up. I got arrogant. And I remember Rob kind of influencing me. He's like, he said something about Spartacus or somebody. And he was like, they were just yelling freedom. And just hitting their chest. I don't know what that was from. So I
think that's Gladiator.
That might be it. Yeah. I got to brush up on my my movie trivia. But I basically took this big blue blowhorn and I was like, like right outside of the ADOC. And everybody was just like riled up. So I'm like, okay. I'm like, here we go. Okay, I got to do this. I had my life jacket on. I had my shoes, whatever. I was like, okay, here we go. They gave up when I hit land and just was like, I'm gonna run.
Yeah.
And like, you know, there were a few women in the first one and a few like slower men in the next. So I was just like, I'm gonna book it and good luck. So I was on the water and I remember getting arrogant paddling and kind of I got my boat tipped. So they tipped my boat.
Yeah.
Which I should have done what you done and just bailed, right? You paddled 15 minutes one way out of the island. And it was like 1.5 kilometers offshore. Epic. And I remember I'm in the water, treading water, and they're all next to me. And every time they dab me, I go under. And I'm taking their bingo dabbers and I'm just hawking them. So it's which you did. And I remember you could only use bingo dabbers. That was the one thing that I was like, okay.
Yeah.
This chick, Shayna, she took out a long, thin red Crayola marker and just started having it at me. And I remember not being able to hear out of my left ear for like 3 days afterwards. And I was like, no way is this it? And I was throwing sand at them, whatever. I was doing the whole thing. I should have paid more attention to your run. I should have taken better notes, but that's on me.
You just get onto the boat and you just go. You make a run for freedom.
I had more of an ego issue when I was the one doing it. I was like, you've always been rather humble. Whereas myself at the time was not as much. So
we all go through that. We all go through that phase, right?
Yeah, you went significantly younger than I did, but that's okay. Eventually, right? So I thought that was interesting. But do you have any kind of experiences from that time that just taught you overall, like life lesson that you learned from your time working there in like the summer camp outdoor center kind of industry? From your eyes,
I mean, I think I guess really sort of just we put in long, like your day was never 9 to 5, right? You were on from essentially 24/7, but really from like 6 in the morning till 12 o'clock at night. At least that's how kind of my days operated and stuff.
Pretty much, yeah.
And I mean, so I think it just sort of instilled, you know, the importance of hard work and being able to put the time in to get the job done and do it well.
Yeah.
It wasn't for I mean, you're working at camp. It's not for the money. It's not for the glory of it and stuff. It's because you enjoy doing it. And so I think I certainly do the job that I do now because I enjoy it, because I enjoy going to to work every day. I enjoy the people that I work with, and so I think that that's sort of, if you're able to find that in life, whatever that is. At the time, camp was what that was, and then now, obviously, being able to do the job that I do is fulfills a purpose for me outside of being a husband and a father and a friend and a brother and stuff. So yeah.
So, do you have like an experience that you went through that kind of cultivates who you are today that you can think of?
I mean, I wouldn't say there's one experience. I just say that it's a combination of lots of experiences. I think that the experiences that I had, going to university and going through college and struggling through those two were sort of probably the biggest defining moments that I would probably have recently. It's challenging when you're young. I think that I think that's what a lot of people have trouble with, is finding out what's for them and if it's sort of the right choice or the right path. Like when I was in high school, they certainly talked about college, but I had no I had to go out and figure out, how do I become a paramedic? It was never something that was, as talked about as, going to university. So for a long time, I thought that was what the path to success looked like.
Right.
And so, it took a long time to sort of, be okay with that not necessarily being the path right now. I still want to go to university. I still want to get a degree. It's not going to be in that typical, I'm going to go do it right after high school, and then after, I get my degree, I'm going to go and get, my path has had a bit more, curves in the road, but that's the case for a lot of people, and it's just sort of, I think, accepting that that's just how life is.
Yeah.
I think once you're able to sort of accept that that's how life is, you find that life just is a bit more, it's a bit smoother in that sense, right?
Yeah. Just
take it as it comes, and what's meant to be will be, and what happens, and you really have to just do what is going to make you happy, right? So
yeah. How'd you come to that conclusion? Like, what was that transition like?
How did I come to that conclusion?
It says you said it was like tricky in the beginning.
I think it was just. I think you had to. I think what I ultimately is, I just had to, acknowledge that this is what is going to make me happy, and not necessarily be worried about, what is going to make others happy, or what others, or do what others expect of me. I think that was sort of just letting that go, and then it all kind of worked out. Yeah.
Nice. So I think with that being said, I want to thank you as we wrap up for not just coming on the show, not just like being a good friend, not just being like a inspirational like father figure, or even like man in general, or career man, paramedic. I want to thank you for every time in the camping world specifically, things that I look back on, memories I have, in general of the years I've lived. A lot of them spawned, regardless of your reason, the opportunity were given to me or presented because of you, like something you did. So thinking back on my fondest memories, whether it be campfires, whether you didn't want to do it or not,
sure.
I was like, okay, this is the opening, or this is the opportunity presented to me. Let's make the most of it. And then with that, and just kind of how everything's fallen into place, I'm grateful for you coming on the show, and I'm grateful we were able to chat today.
So, thanks for having me.
Thank you, brother.
Awesome.
Right on.